Okay, here I am, and thank you very much for attending today's meditation. I know it looks like I'm in Shambhala. I set it up that way. I got a backdrop that looks just like it. So I'm actually there in some etheric-like way. So anyway, I'm going to be teaching today in relationship to the principle of humanity and how the process of reincarnation establishes certain rays on the planet. So imagine that as we look at humanity, we look at war, we look at today's world, we look at an enormous amount of sports going on. You see football, baseball, basketball, and seasons, and millions of people go to it and pay their tickets and are fans, enormous fans of this, and have been for a very long time. And along with that, there are then people who then go to war and become very, very fanatical in the relationship of military, and they do everything they can to win over, to win the relationship of superiority over another team or people that you're attacking in the military. So the process inside of mankind, inside of humanity in reincarnation has to do with the events that took place, the life that happened, how it is mankind dealt with having to work for Nero and have to work for Caesar and have to work for kings and queens and have to work for Mongols or, fall dead to them. Slowly but surely the hatred, the hostility, the aggression takes over and literally enslaves people and takes them as children, and there is no characteristics of who you're going to be or what you're going to be or what you want to do. It's all built on the process of war or the process of slavery toward getting gold or oil or something like that. So a lot of humanity is used. A lot of humanity is under a force that's under a very small group of people who are like king or queen or warlords or different kinds of leadership in relationship to our planet. And it has the power to regulate the rays in which humanity then reincarnates with. So it doesn't matter if you incarnate with a fourth ray soul or second ray soul or fifth ray soul or sixth ray soul. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is our past lives. And if we look at all the war and all the competition that goes on in the world, we are most dominantly affected by the influence of the fifth ray, the influence of concrete mind and the willing to go along with and not open up to soulful integration and constantly exist or subsist on very moderate income, no income at all, or all kinds of situations that put you in the situation to where you're really not facilitating or able to have circumstances to actually facilitate what would be the incarnation of your soul. And that's not your problem. That's not your fault. It's not something that you in yourself has done. It is the working out of an enormous amount of planetary karma. When we're taken over by lunar lords and dark forces and forced to do things in order to stay alive, those influences inhabit the person. They become the person. You have to close off your senses. You have to stop your ability to feel. You have to become more stone. You have to be more the influence of what women say men are. Yeah, they can't talk, they can't communicate, they have all these characteristics, and mainly what it is having been abused for so many eons of time. Having been forced to go to war, having been forced to carry a gun, having been forced to be like their grandfather or their father, and all these different things that completely eliminate the soul in its process of externalization and its integration into the world. Yeah, it maintains the inertia, it maintains the superiority aspects that comes from very strong-willed, evil, dominating forces. Yeah, that force other people to be very similar, yeah, and to go up a ladder of competition and credibility or lack of credibility through this process. You know, whether or not you're famous or all the things that happen, and that characteristic has to do with the fifth ray. Yeah, it's the fifth ray, whether it's at the emotional body or in the personality, in whatever aspect it's coming through the vehicles. It is due to the karmic adjustment of past life and the present adjustment of this particular life, of things that are going on in the world today. And people are reveling in it on TV and movies, and all of that is simply because, and they're even covering themselves with tattoos, it's simply because they are hard as stone. Their influence of being able to be sensitive and see in a soulful manner what the heck is going on, and really the experience of sensitivity would be so overwhelming to the influence of humanity, who's so dominated by the inertia that's found in the fifth ray. Because when they go to school, they're trained to be fifth ray. When they go into sports, they're trained to be fifth ray. When they go in the military, they're trained to be fifth ray. When they're under the dictatorship of a mother or a father, they're trained to be the fifth ray. Remember, you don't talk, you don't say anything or do anything unless you're told to. You know, the influences of control, manipulation, and telling boys that you can't cry, you can't be emotional, all those different characteristics that sponsors the growing, and it's not the person, but it's simply the growing of the fifth ray. Yeah? And that allows these people to continue on their inertia, continue on their stupid decisions of, oh, I'm going to be a football player, I'm going to be a basketball player, I'm going to be a, whatever it is that leads them toward the process of having a competitive process of energetic embodiment, which is competing against other people and not feeling any guilt or any sensitivity or any wrongness about it. And yet, the moment you step into Tibetan, my Buddhism, you step into that, you learn that one of the main things you got to do is let go of the desire to tear one down in order to get up. Yeah, that's very simple, subtle process of understanding harm. Yeah, so it really is one of the first conscious awarenesses that comes to the awakening inside the soul. So it really is there in order to establish a clearing on that fifth ray. And it's not because people have those rays as their personality or anything. It's because of the overwhelming ray of humanity that expresses into the earth, that it controls the embodiment of humanity to be subjected to cultures and biases and all kinds of things and programs and expectations inside the fifth ray, whether you be a girl or a boy. Yeah, it's all concrete, fictitious delusion. That's why we have parapsychology and psychicism and all that kind of stuff, because there is a great big wall of whether or not we know this is true or not. You know, whether or not God is true or not. You know, all of those things are part of the fact that we are locked in a fifth ray state of being. Our body is manifesting the element of the fifth ray more than any other ray. And it's especially happening in men. Men were the ones who were subjected to go to war. Yeah, men are the ones who were forced to kill someone and not have it affect them. But we all know now that every man that goes to war comes back with mental illness and comes back with all types of emotional disabilities, because their soul simply cannot handle the fact they killed even one person, caused harm to even one person, or one of their close friends is harmed because of the circumstance they're in. Yeah, it's so renting to the soul that the personality creates a bigger and bigger web of the fifth ray in order to veil it, in order to make it less and less sensitive. And that creates an enormous process of explosion. The possibility of that person becoming more violent, more aggressive, more lack of control of their emotions and their abilities, and their not going into a McDonald's and shooting everybody and not desiring to have guns. Yeah, the reason why people desire to have guns is because it's 100% fifth ray. Yeah, and in an evolved society, the fifth ray is always used for the element of science and understanding. Yeah, it's a process of fixing things. So it really should be the process of us getting rid of guns. It should be the process of us getting rid of football. It should be the process of us getting rid of all the things that are the lower side of the fifth ray, holding our personality at bay. And we should get our own soul. We should get our own personality. We should get all of our rays that we have in ourselves to awaken, rather than be dominated by this major singular ray that expresses the humanity. Yeah? So let me show you just a couple of things that are the influence of the rays. I got this right. 3. Okay, so I'm going to focus first on the personality, its influence, and its main influence in its natural element and its natural ego is to deflect the influence of the soul. Yeah, so literally to not just block it, but create a false light that through the ego creates this ego. Yeah, and out of that comes a false light that blocks the true light. You know, so the true self, it is blocked by the lower self. It stands in the way. Yeah? So this is a little primary means of standing in the way of the higher self, primary means of evading or failing to respond to the higher calling, primary means of limiting expansion and refusing to grow by expressing selfishness and separateness, and through self-centered and self-referencing. So what is self-referencing? What is self-centered? What if a person constantly has a tendency to assume they know what's going on, to assume they know the situation. Here you are saying something, and they really can't clearly hear what you're saying. Yeah, they already assume. They already have that self-centered reality going on that supersedes the influence of communication and caring and sharing and all the things that is required to be a human being. And that fifth ray, literally, that ego, that personality, is what controls that. So it gets in the way. Yeah, because it has the selfishness and separateness. It's limiting expansion and refusing to grow. So if an idea comes its way, it's not going to be the very first thing that it's going to agree with. If it is a lesser idea and agreeable in the notion of that self-centered, self-referencing reality, then it would immediately be okay, yeah? But not if it has to do with the higher calling. And the higher calling always has to do with a change of what's going on. Yeah? The process that goes on is always in a state of change. It's always in a state of evolution. So primary means of standing in the way of the higher self, personality, can be opaque and translucent. When it's translucent, it is the valued instrument of the soul. It faithfully transmits the soul's light into the three lower worlds. And if you understand the relationship of the soul and what I teach, the soul is a direct expression of the monad. And if you understand the relationship of the monad is God. Yeah? So literally you're getting in the way of God, but you're getting in the way of God's blessing to you to create you a life, to manifest a way for you to go forward and express your soulful life in this world and fix things as you go along, rather than have that fifth ray or personality that's blocking those three worlds from cooperating. Yeah? So if it's opaque, it blocks the light of the soul. As personality, we often stand in our own light of our own soul. Yeah? So you got to imagine that the situation is that the personality, especially this fifth ray, it has a tendency to create a false light. And it turns that into a process to where we see people that are willing to go to war, or willing to destroy, or willing to continue on with something. It's mainly because their orientation is lower mind, and you get a lot more people to agree on lower mind than you do on higher mind. Yeah? So it's the relationship of the fifth ray. As long as it's maintained as it is today, then we will always have the suffering inside of humanity that manifests in the world today. Yeah? So its transition is through the soul. So regardless of the ray, no matter what ray you are, it's not about the rays of the individual. It's about the power of the rays of the world, the rays of evil that's manifested as a lunar lord. If you are in Syria and the Taliban is in charge, and there's one major leader that's in charge of that energy is influencing you, the food you're eating, the water you're drinking, and everything you got going on. And that's everywhere you are at, no matter where you're at. Every place you stand, every place you think that you're in your own little home. It's not true. You're under the influence of the society that you're in. Yeah? So the personality is intelligence. Regardless of the ray, the soul is fundamentally altruistic, but the personality is fundamentally selfish. If the personality is allowed to proceed in an unbridled, undisciplined manner, it will reinforce itself as a center, and it will prevent the consciousness from achieving the decentralized attitude of the loving soul. So a fate center is created, yeah, and this manifests in the form of fame and fortune and all the different things that we see in the world in a karmic way. Rich and poor and all the things we see are all manifested from this fake center of attraction that we all are. Every human being is moved through this, and the influences of the lowest dark forces we can ever imagine are manifested through this influence in order to keep the soul from manifesting, and it manifests a false light. That false light becomes the attribute or the negative attribute of the soul. Yeah, and it's the personality. That influence that comes through the personality, the way in which the personality expresses is colored by the influence of the soul. Yeah? So it's by the undisciplined personality, it's full of itself and standing on its own light. Yeah? It will utterly fail to see because of denseness, It cannot see or sense or hear the soul. The personality becomes so focused upon itself as a sole point of reference for all experience. So you could be watching a movie and 100 people are watching this movie, but 100 people are not watching the same movie. They're all seeing it from a different perspective. They're all seeing it from their little point, their ego, yeah, a self perspective. And that personality, no matter where you're at, whether you're looking at chickens or you're looking at animals doing a weird thing, and you decipher it as being something totally fantasy-oriented. Can't see it for the truth that it is, right in front of you, yeah? Sense it, or hear it, or see it, yeah? Because the person's too focused in that central point of creating a false light inside themselves. And when reality hits, they're completely confused. Especially if the soul comes in and said, oh, this is what's going on. It is a complete shock for the people who are just adamantly controlled by their own selfishness. And it's not evil. It's literally the process of karma that has not been adjusted and is sitting in that person with tormenting qualities toward all of humanity. Tormenting. The primary means of evading the higher calling, that's what the personality does. The soul calls to the personality. The voice of the soul is not only heard as a voice, but it manifests as special attractions and interests, as special circumstances and opportunities which present themselves to the personal consciousness. But if you're selfish and you can't hear or be sensitive, then the influence of your physical body and your emotional body will respond in a negative way. Yeah? So all of a sudden you can't hear. All of a sudden you can't smell it. All of a sudden you can't see it. Yeah? You look away. You close your eyes. You're focused upon your self-centeredness, and you're totally not aware of any of the surroundings. Yeah? And that's dangerous to all of humanity. You have no idea how many millions of children are waiting for every individual to allow a bit of the soul to manifest on earth. Just a bit. I'm not talking a whole lot. Just stop doing the selfish things that inhabit your habitual life, which is watching football or doing the little habitual things that you have going on in your personal life that can't hear the soul. The personality jumps in there so strongly. Yeah? So it is a possibility for the personality, it is possible for the personality to hear, see, or recognize divine urges. Personality preoccupation deflects the divine intrusion of the soul. And it's not like it's evil. It doesn't do it so intentionally. It does it because of knee-jerk reality of being a samurai warrior. Knee-jerk reality of taking a bayonet and sticking it in someone out of England. Yeah? A knee-jerk reality of shooting someone in the back of the head because you're scared. Yeah? It comes back on you. Yeah? And it becomes a habitual delusion inside your life. The personality is that peculiar force which more than others renders the consciousness unresponsive to the voice of the soul. The personality, having established itself as the center of consciousness, does not want to relinquish that position. Personality consumes the time and the attention which otherwise might be given to soul recognition. Yeah? And that is in everybody. Yeah? Every single person. The difficulty is that most people are so wrapped up in their personality they honestly believe it's their soul. And they justify every action they do as a soulful action. So there's really not I can help in a relationship where ignorance is actually manifesting an intellectual interpretation of ungodliness, as soulfulness. Yeah? Even going to a baseball game. Oh, look at all the angels. They're here because this is divinely ordained as something that's necessary. the primary means of expressing selfishness and separateness. Man is two beings. One of them is selfish and the other is selfless. It is impossible to escape the dynamic of self. The entire theme of this life is the higher self, and ultimately the one self. But the will self be larger, or will that self be larger or small? Will the higher self, which is eventually the one self, which is a realization of God, or will it be the identification with the one particular little self? And worse yet, it becomes a series of identifications with many fragmented, partially super-personal selves, yeah, which is a super personification, a super amplification of separation made manifest into sub-personalities. Yeah? And these sub-personalities become fanatic extensions. You can see people on TV, you see people in movies, then all of a sudden you don't identify them with yourself, but you think you know who they are. You think you know what they are. You think you know what's going on. And you glamorize it as something grand or just judge it as something critical. But either way, it's only being done by the personality. That is nothing that the soul does. Soul has no identification with outer form. The negative personality dynamics is primarily means of standing in the way of the higher self, primarily means of evading, falling to responding of the call, yeah, limiting expansion, or I think I already did this one. Yeah. There we go. So the one of the other main things is that it's primarily means is self-centered and self-referencing. The unenlightened personality keeps its eyes upon itself. The soul sees itself in all other selves. So imagine if you see someone and you identify them separate, and you see them as separate. You see them as a separate identity. Yeah, and you separate that into maybe 8 or 9 or 10 other identities that are similar to that identity. But you don't see them as yourself. Yeah, you don't see them as the good part of yourself. Maybe a little part of that person as a good part of yourself, but still you're able to see that rather than all the other aspects that turn that person into a personality. Yeah. So what you're expressing when you're doing that is the soulful light that you're seeing within yourself. And it expresses outwardly. It has a calling for you to realize this in people outside yourself. That's empathy. That manifests as the first form of empathy. So because of the force of the personality, consciousness fails to achieve the escape velocity and is kept localized. It may wish to reach out wider in identification, but it always is recaptured by the gravitational pull of the personal self and brought back to the center. So why do women fall for men that are very aggressive, drunk, motorcycle, a lot of tattoos, yeah? And men have to turn to that. They have to do that. They have to put those clothes on. They have to change their identity. They have to keep moving in that way because of this fifth ray. The influence of what goes on is that false center, the influence of what it's like not to be in your soul and not to love the body of another person, not to love the influence of another person, not to see the integration of the pairs of opposites, how to integrate that reality. Yeah, because in our personality, there is always a pairs of opposites, but in our soul, there is not. We have a way of defining things by sensitivity, by the ability to merge with other people rather than push them away, by the ability to sense and let go and relax our personality and begin feeling the influence of another person. Yeah. And that takes us out of our center. And it also keeps other people from falling into their center. So every time we do what we can in order to not become selfish, and not become the influences of drawing back down into that center, and every time that that's done, you abandon every one of those qualities, then you're actually moving yourself in a greater opportunity for the influence for your soul to be heard. Your sensitivity widens. That fifth ray, and if you do have a fifth ray soul or personality or whatever, it's not going to affect you in the same way as the fifth ray of the collective body of humanity that's tormented by the influence of delusions, that comes in from following tyrants and evil and having to support an enormous amount of cover-up of the influence of the pain and suffering that one has caused life after life after life to other people. That is impossible to handle. People are doing it today, and it's impossible to handle. Not one person can handle it well. Never. So we have all of our lives, all of our past lives are involved in that until we end all wars, until we end the suffering of children, until we end the relationships of allowing old people to die and suffer in poverty. If we move into our soul, we will be called to do the things that are right. And we will have more time and will be more organized, because the seventh ray will awaken in our sacral center. And our relationships in life will be unburdened by the qualities of these evil, tormenting spirit qualities that manifest through the personality to hold the elemental process at bay, to keep us from our higher Devic self and realizing the influences of angels, the influences of Buddha, the influences of our true self are ourself. And it's not something that we're escaping from in order to go into some delusionary religious practice, but it's something that allows us to unveil from this concrete sport-like illusion that deludes us into the process of aggression and separation. And it's all through selfishness. There's no controlling process to it. It all just happens. If you maintain any aspect of selfishness in yourself, you're maintaining that fake light, you're maintaining that center of vibration, you're maintaining the ability for us never to have environmental safety and never to have proper economic realities inside of humanity. The only way we do that is because we maintain our selfishness. So we need to let all of that go and become highly aware that everybody's got this going on. So if we relax ourselves as individuals and do everything we can to allow the soul to integrate by becoming more empathetic, less questionable, less judgmental, but have understanding to the fact that an enormous amount of men have an enormous amount of elemental forces inside them that come from past lives. And those energies are detrimental to the influence that comes in contact with it. So that's why I recommend taking refuge. That's why I recommend men lay off of having any kind of interpersonal relationship with a woman. And get yourself together. Allow yourself to not have that center of past lives. Don't think that because you're a pacifist today, that you were a pacifist yesterday. All pacifists were forced by forced labor and by tyranny to not be a pacifist. And they may have died of it, but they still carried out the process. So there isn't hardly a man alive that's not carrying this burden inside of them. So the best thing to do is take refuge and let go of this energy, let go of that process of having that energy inside you, and take refuge into the energy of not being selfish. Understand what selfishness is. Understand where it comes from and understand how it manifests. It's an elemental force. And in order for us all to be healed, we need the soul. We need to regulate our personality. We need to gain control over it. That's the purpose of the soul. So it's not about a religion. It's not about anything like that. It's about your soul and about giving your soul the opportunity And it does it in a very passive way. It does it in a very loving, calm, gentle, empathetic, caring way, even for yourself. But the influence of the personality is rebellious and aggressive and has all kinds of weird expressions that counteract the influence of that soul. So it's hard for the personality mind to see it in a soulful way while it's happening. But if you understand that in your mind, this is what you're doing. You're trying to take care of your soul, to get it closer to your personality and get rid of this personality quality you've got. And everybody has it. So I don't care who you are, trust me, you got to get clear. Yeah, you've got to clean up the processes that allows us to watch football and continue the process of the amount of harm that we're doing to humanity with stupid decisions that we should just choose not to do, but we're just going to allow to continue because we are not in charge of our personality because we're too selfish. And being selfish completely keeps you from being ever in charge of anything. Yeah, so let's do the meditation. And there is one thing I wanted to show. I had this made. This little thing right here. It is a weaver. Yeah. And you see an etheric weaver here. And this is the phi ratio. You see the star and all that, the etheric weaver in the center. This is a very powerful influence. Yeah. The energy that is natural in its geomancy is an applied geomancy. So it basically helps to harmonize. It's not some magical process, but it does work in relationship to harmonic values. Yeah. So in geomancy and the use of the etheric weavers and all of that, this is very effective in helping to heal energy of rents and things like that around your body, or just to meditate, to hold it or use it as an etheric weaver to meditate. Yeah. So that's a new thing, and just to show it to you because I haven't really showed it before. So we're going to begin the meditation. And let me just put this on for a second. Okay, we're going to start with the invocation, and then after the invocation we're going to do the Om. And the Om again is for 20 minutes. And after the Om, I may or may not do the drum, but I will do the bowls during the time of the Om. So thank you very much for attending if I don't stick with you and begin teaching again after the Om. But stay focused. I do teachings during the time of the Om, so watch the screen. It will change, and I will be presenting other teachings, so it's really good for you to stay focused, keep your eyes open, and when you do the Om, you want to make sure people hear you. You don't want to do it to where people don't hear you. You want people to hear you, yeah? And you want to make sure that your invocation is an invocation. It's something you can hear, not something you do quietly. Don't do it that way. That's not an invocation. There's no willful aspect to the influence of your soul. So if you want your soul to come through, it has to be stronger than your personality. So that's why your personality goes, oh, and your personality goes, I invoke the power. You know, your personality totally doesn't want it. Yeah. So the main thing is for you to supersede your personality. Yeah, and allow your calling of the soul to come through, and your cooperation will happen very quickly. You'll find that you have a great sound in your Om. If not, it will get better because you have empathy and understanding, and you have strength as that soul increases. Soul is the second ray. You know, so you have a strength in order to do your invocations, be heard when you're speaking. People with an enormous personality talk very low. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but that is the energy of the demonic spirit. is to make people have to listen, to force people to listen, whether it be not being able to speak clearly, or being able to speak too fast, or just speaking too low. Then the person has to either repeat what you're saying or hear and repeat back and forth, and that is actually a possession process. It's an energy where the person has so much ego, wants you to serve them in their center. So the key is to control timing. So if they can get you to repeat their names, or get you to identify the fact that they just showed up late, or any of those things that allows that center point to be identified in that person in the atmosphere of existence, then all things are moved toward that if it's a greater ego. And it usually is like a rock or something you'd never notice as having such a tormenting evil spirit. But it does. And one day you're going to have to discern and discriminate that the quieter, the more dangerous. And that the influence of quiet does not mean holy. Yeah? The influence of quiet means that there is an enormous churning of selfishness going on. That quite often when it comes out, it is one scary son of a gun. And it doesn't have anything to do with understanding or comprehension of the real reality of the situation, because the senses have been dead for so long that many things inside the physical body has deteriorated, many things inside the emotional body is incompetent, and most things inside the mind are falling apart. Yeah? And that's usually the case of people as they grow older and time moves on. Yeah? So that is our personality. That's the effect it has on us. That's why we suffer. That's why we have the diseases we do. Yeah. So let's focus on trying to use our soul to be stronger and express our sound, express our invocation, and always be on time, and always be alert, and always be understanding, and always be in the relationship to where you never make a person repeat themselves in the form of when you're talking. Yeah. Because there are many things in the throat center that go on that have secretive aspects of control, and that is usually the quality of speech. Yeah. So whether it be a certain type of speech that actually grinds on you and gets you irritated, or a one that you can listen to halfway through, but you can't hear it all the way because the language is not clear. Yeah. It is a matter of the personality to become self-aware, and it's the matter of the personality to allow the soul to come in to fix those things. Yeah? So it is the process inside of another person's personality that allows them to tolerate that and be drawn in to the space of other people's personality. So we're all drawn in to this personality process. We're all moved by it, whether it be the watching TV or the influences of the president. We're all drawn in to the process of that personality or other personalities. So the key is, do not be drawn in to the personality. Allow it to relax. While you're in meditation and you're doing the Om, the invocation, evocation is to strengthen your heart center. Doing the Om is to strengthen your heart center. That means there's a greater possibility that your sensitivity in relationship to not being that fifth ray so much, but being the correct full amount of chakras that you have in your body, and allowing them to resonate according to your karma, and allow that karma to work itself out and adjust itself without the outside influences of your agreement to this fifth ray world. Yeah? If you take refuge, then you agree that this fifth ray world is not something that you can go with. So by taking refuge, you're actually focusing through that and seeking that soul and moving yourself through the soul and sitting steadfast in the relationship of either meditation or study or other things that allow you to conquer the delusions that are sitting inside the soul. Yeah. So let's begin the invocation. Okay, just repeat after me the invocation, and we'll begin. I invoke the power, the love, and the wisdom of my ashram, soul, and monad. To guide me into the right activity in the plan. To clarify and stimulate my mind. To transform and transmute my feelings and emotions. To energize and vitalize and heal my physical and etheric body. So there is a normal flow of energy in my physical and etheric body. To this day and every day, I ask this in the name of the Christ to serve the One. All in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, so here we are. Okay, I'm just going to check this. All right. Actually looks like I'm behind the seat. It's cool. Okay, take a deep breath. Okay, now just relax. And I'm going to go ahead and do some drum. Maybe I should wear my hat. Okay. attending. And please do all you can to relax and allow your sensitivity to awaken and abandon all the characteristics and qualities that bring about your personality. Okay. Have a good day. Thank you.